6.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the Central Region Town Hall regular meeting. Unfortunately, due to some miscommunication, we did not get the agenda posted in time. It was posted online and sent out via email, but it was not physically posted. So we aren't going to be able to vote on anything, which isn't really going to affect what we are going to discuss tonight. So we don't have anything that is in particular of importance to vote on. We will start with roll call. Becky Schwinger, chair here. Austin Pratt.
Here.
Atlas Pearson.
Here.
John Carlson. He's absent. And Jacob Blue.
Here.
All right. And so we'll have to move the approval of our minutes for last month's meeting for April 14th to next month's meeting. And item number 3, an update from Lars Ewing. He was unable to make it tonight, so that will be postponed until next month as well. And then item number 4, discussion for a presentation, or I think Glenn March said he didn't really have a presentation, but he wanted to field some questions and give you some updates about some projects going on in the county. So welcome, Glenn, and if you could find wherever the microphone might be. And yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I wanted to discuss about our 20-year planning that's happening in the county right now. So there are 4 plans that the county is working on this calendar year. So I want to make sure you are aware of these plans and have the opportunity to give input. So
Is it turned on? I think it is. Check, check. Teach Lynn how to use the microphone.
that'd be great. I'm not the brightest bulb in the shed. I really am.
Go ahead. Just make sure you speak. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so backing up, the first plan that the county sheriff's office is working on is the hazard mitigation plan. So if you check out the county sheriff's website, they have a what they call the 2026 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So that describes projects that will minimize damage in case of an earthquake, fire, and items like that. So that item is nearing completion and should be adopted very soon. So I suggest you review the action items, and if you have any suggestions, reach out to your supervisor or me, because the comment period is closed. So we want to, they're nice enough to let me add projects at this time, but the comment period for the public is closed. Because there's necessary paperwork that has to go along with any suggestion, and I would be required to complete that. The second and third plans, I believe John Spica may have already discussed with you. John is from the Lake APC. Lake APC is working on the regional transportation plan and the active transportation plan. They were, the most recent update was in 2022. So it's time for another update. And so the regional transportation plan identifies projects of regional significance. So before, on the last project, the primary street for the county, project for the county was South Main Street, Soda Bay Road improvements. And the projects that I am going to add to the list are currently, my plan is to add let's see, our 2 arterial roads. It's the Nice Lucerne Cutoff Road Rehabilitation, the Bottle Rock Road Rehabilitation. Any road that connects 2 interstates, or what we call our collector roads, that would be Red Hill Road, and there's probably a few more. And those are of regional significance, our collector roads. And the other one was, I'm going to propose improvements along Route 20 in Lucerne. So this would accompany the Caltrans Complete Streets. We're trying to get those projects connected. So that's what I'll be planning for the regional transportation plan. So we also have an active transportation plan, and those are projects that are of multimodal nature. So those are projects that would include road improvements, bicycle improvements, pedestrian improvements, as well as transit improvements. Our major project in our active transportation plan, oh no, that's the wrong one. Those were primarily sidewalk projects, no real bicycle and pedestrian projects, or bicycle projects. So I would like you to take a look at the 2022 RTP, ATP plan that's available on the Lake APC website. And there is the opportunity to provide comments now on the Lake APC website. So if you have any ideas for projects, please reach out to the Lake APC to provide your input. The fourth and final plan, this will be updated in the fall. It's what we call our local road safety plan. So our local road safety plans identify projects to improve the safety of our roads. Lake County has not the best roads for safety, many incidents, and I encourage you to look at the, if you want to know about incidents and accidents in the county, there's a website called TIMS, TIMS.berkeley.edu. And so if you search TIMS Berkeley, it's the Transportation Incident Management something. So that will give you all the accident data for fatalities and serious injuries throughout the state. So if you reach out to me, I can give you easy directions on how to access the information, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I could figure it out in a day, so you guys could too. So, and those are the So those are the 4 plans that the county is looking to update. So these are 20-year plans. So the 20-year plans are very important when we go seek grant funds for projects. So anytime we seek grant funds, because these are county recognized projects of importance, it's really important to seek our grant funds, and we reference these plans, these 20-year planning documents. So I would like to have the opportunity to discuss with you any projects or plans or concerns that we could address or try to imagine a project. So a lot of people have concerns about traffic where there may be incidents or safety concerns that we could possibly address as a project, and we can identify that project in one of the plans. So I'm here for a discussion, not a presentation. I know people in the past have gotten upset with me for not bringing a presentation, but I prefer discussion. And I'm open to any questions. I'll turn over the mic to the audience. So,
Here, I'll take them around for you. There we go. Yeah, my name's Charlie Bean, and I'm just wondering, when are we going to start seeing our streets through here worked on?
so I've been directed by, so as you may be aware, the Board of Supervisor approved a 2022-2023 pavement management plan, which is available on the Lake APC website. We do not have funding for the adopted plan. So I've been instructed by the board to come up with a interim short-term plan before the next pavement management plan update. So I'm looking, when I was hired, I explained to the board that pavement is not a PCI issue, but it's a quality of life issue. So we intend to I intend to propose addressing the poor streets first, and then as well as our larger arterial streets. So that's my game plan. I'll present it to the board before the July. So it'll be sometime in June.
When you will know when we're going to start fixing the roads?
I haven't gotten direction from the board of my short-term plan, so I don't want to discuss it here. So I'm telling you guys that I'm presenting a plan in the near future. It will be the next 6 years of road projects.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns?
I had one that perhaps may make it to probably the regional transportation plan, it sounded like. I'm going to not try to find what civil legal code last year there was a vote for the state to enforce, I think it's a 15-foot curb from stop signs to have enforced as in no parking. And now I don't know what the funding for enforcement that would be, especially because considering it would require probably painting sidewalks and a lot of other things that would go right back into a roads and payments issue. But do you know if the rollout of that, is it 15 foot? Do you know what I'm speaking of? Is it, I think 15-foot stop barrier from each stop sign if it's...
I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah.
Or the discussion. I haven't looked into it in detail, and I don't know how or if we're going to roll it out.
I understand. No, the reason why I ask is I think I just saw a headline that San Diego County is the first place, like just last week, that this headline came that is enforcing that law. So that's to say, I don't necessarily anticipate that to be here next month either, but I am curious about that because we do have a lot of stop signs and a lot of people roll stopping here through that Lucerne. So
Yeah,
very curious about that.
I can't address that because it's more of a enforcement issue, right?
I have a concern that's been a hot topic here for a couple years. The Foothill Bridge. That bridge, it's imperative that that bridge be replaced. And I don't know, I mean, obviously I don't have an engineering degree, my husband does. But as far as that slows down emergency response time significantly. It hindered me getting to a fire, I think 2 years ago, because I was trying to locate the smoke and then drove all the way up to the bridge, had to turn around, and that cost an extra 3+ minutes because fire engines don't turn on a dime to get to the fire to extinguish it. So it is a public safety concern, and that's pretty paramount. and also, trying to redirect that traffic and coming down Robin Hood. It's not the safest intersection to have to come up to a stop on a hill and also to kind of a blind corner going down. So I don't know if I know during fires, like Army Corps of Engineers put up temporary bridges. They put up temporary bridges in Spring Valley. And so I don't know if there's a means for the county, wherever the footings or abutment, to put a temporary bridge, even if it's a one-lane bridge. They make those, and I'm sure that's not very difficult to get something put in place so that avenue can be used, because it's, like I said, you can get them rated to take fire equipment, because I've taken them across there. And then the other thing is, as far as some of our streets, I don't know if you've, I'm sure you've driven down some of them and seen how terrible they are. First, there's plenty that are not good. And if you can imagine somebody that's, severely injured and trying to take them down one of our streets that has a fractured femur or something, and then that's just causing it to, the bones to grind together. It's not a comfortable thing. The ambulances don't ride like Cadillacs. And, people are dodging potholes. There's some potholes walking. Foothills, obviously terrible as well. And some of those potholes are like, 4 or 5 inches deep in places. And I know that there's other places in the county where the roads are in severe disrepair. But obviously, we're advocating for our town. And I think, number one, that Foothill Bridge needs to be replaced. It's been out too long, and it is a significant public safety risk.
So all the departments have been directed by the board to come up with a capital improvement plan. So that will list all our projects that we're currently working on and that we intend to work on into the future. So some of the projects we have funding for, some we do not. The bridge you mentioned will be on that list, and how we pay for it, how we find funding is a different item. So how the Public Works Department works is the Public Works Director makes recommendations to the board as far as which projects to take on first, and that will be reflected in our capital improvement plan. So we have 2 bridges that are out in the county. We have 3 bridges that have what they call Bailey bridges, or temporary bridges over top of them. And so there is a lot of issues associated with bridges. So we have recently hired a bridge maintenance supervisor. On his desk this morning, I have put together his tasks about identifying what work we need to get accomplished, or not what work we need to get accomplished, but he's going to do an inventory of all the bridges. We have inspection reports from all the bridges. He will identify what we can do in-house. We can't replace that bridge in-house, but we can maybe put a culvert there or something rather than replace the bridge. And we're going to go through all our bridges and address them. The intersection you addressed, I'm not familiar with that intersection. If you want to send me an email to address that intersection. What else? What else did you ask about?
That intersection is just because you have to detour around the Foothill Bridge.
Okay.
But like I said, that should be, towards the top of the list, and whatever type of funding, fine, because like I said, I experienced it firsthand, and it is a, public safety risk for our community.
Right.
I've also been curious as it relates to, I suppose, the needed the funding pipeline for that bridge specifically, as it relates to the rest of the county, if other resources for funding for that specific bridge would be made available, would that be something you pursue? Like, say, from the USDA National Forest Service? Because my understanding is that bridge was constructed originally as a logging road to access these areas. And so I'd be willing to bet that when it comes time to eventually remove the bridge, there will be some more particulars to work out for that. So even if, for example, it's a small bridge and it costs on the low end of what bridges cost, for example, that's what gives me pause to see if there aren't other resources of funding out there, as opposed to I mean, I understand with the amount of bridges throughout the county, and we're named Lake County, we're gonna have a lot of bridges, and a lot of that is going to have to get sorted out as equitably to each of those communities those bridges serve as possible. But as far as this bridge in this community goes, it's public safety sake and intermixed with its origination is something that puzzles me, so that maybe the county needs to start seeking alternative funding sources for some of these. Like if this was Indian Valley, no, Spring Valley, the Spring Valley community not long ago had a similar bridge issue that I think they found funding through, a federal grant, because they're an area that was not created, like when this became a county, so that bridge was put in again. Does that make sense?
So it's actually easier to get funding for longer bridges. So how Caltrans identifies bridges, they're either long span or short span. And our long span bridges over 40 feet from abutment to abutment get federal funding. Short span bridges, they no federal funding. We have to compete with the same, right now we're competing with the same dollars we used to pave our roads to do those short span bridges, unless I can get, there's some culvert funding and culvert funding for the hitch. We have some bridges that are impediments to the hitch going upstream. So there's a funding source for that. So just so you know, we had an RFQ out for consultants, grant writing consultants. We received 14 statement of qualifications, and we're going to select 4. So we're going to have additional resources to search out grants. As far as Forest Service, the only Forest Service, we previously received a check every year from Forest Service to do improvements around schools, and that was primarily around Upper Lake schools. But that funding has been cut off. So the funding came to an end last year. So we will have consultants help us look for funding. So that is something that the county, DPW had not done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
You just acquired some folks to help with the searching for funding, right?
Right. We are in the process.
Yes, I don't know if I mentioned it last meeting, but as I talked to Director March before, he was mentioning that he was working on getting some folks to help acquire funding to go for some of this, roads, bridges, the problems that we have with that. And so he's still in that process, but it's coming closer. I don't know, I just wanted to add that because we're talking about funding and whatnot, so.
So just so you're aware, I have applied for 2 grants for work in Lucerne on the avenues. So did not get one, but one is in the process. One is still in the hopper. So, and we're going to look for some more grants for Lucerne.
Thank you.
All right.
Question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know how much the funding would be to fix the bridge. How much? The price to fix the bridge, probably under $2 million. So, it's expensive.
How much is one of the temporary bridges? And are there any sitting like at the county yard or anything like that?
I don't know. So,
I was told, and it could be, misinformation, of course, so I don't want to spread that, but that the county had some temporary bridges, so I don't know whether that to be fact or not.
we do have 2 temporary bridges deployed right now.
And
So
how-
I don't know if we have a 3rd bridge.
Okay, and how much are those temporary bridges? What is the price tag for those?
I'm uncertain.
Okay.
So you can reach out to me and ask me those questions. I can get them
Okay.
to the right person. So, any other questions, comments, ideas for projects? Thought you were supposed to walk this around. That didn't last very long.
Thank you, Glenn. Julia Carrera. I want to understand the difference between the 4 plans and the capital improvement plan. So when I think about the capital improvement plan, I think reserves, things that you need to build up monies for or get grants for over time to replace or whatever. So what is the difference between your 4 plans and the capital improvement plan?
So the 4 plans, excuse me, the 4 plans are 20-year planning documents. They are for the purpose of identifying those projects, those county priority projects. So that is the first step in applying for grants for those projects identified in the plans. So when we fill out a grant application for a federal grant, we'll cite those plans that the counties has recognized a particular project as a significant project for the county. The capital improvement plan is a budget document. So the budget document, because this will be the first capital improvement plan that the county does, it'll be a standalone document. But in the future, it'll be incorporated into the annual budget. So what that does, adoption of the capital plan authorizes staff to spend the dollars identified. So that will include our grant projects as well as projects funded by the general fund. But it also will list our funded projects and our unfunded projects that we are prioritizing or would like to search for grant funds. It's great to have a list out there so people can understand our priorities and let everybody know that what we're working on. I mean, you would be surprised that we're currently working on over 40 projects, 40 to 50 projects. So it's a credible workload for our small staff. And we're going to add more projects to it and seek out funding. So, sure. We'll fix some things. Start at the top, right? Got to make a list and start at the top. They're great planning documents, and it's an opportunity for the community to give input to the board and the board to understand what staff is working on and what our recommendations to the board are. All right.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns? I don't know if there's anybody online, Thomas. Anybody online?
Oh, we wouldn't be able to hear them anyways. They can hear us, but
Nothing in the chat or anything like that? Okay. Okay.
I have one more, Mr. Marsh. Your department would be responsible for, say, speed limit signs, but not necessarily setting the speed limit there itself. Is that true?
Both.
Both, okay. The Harbor Creek Park right here between Country Club and the harbor at Highway 20 has been a park through the county for the better part of a decade now with the exact same speed limits posted throughout the avenues. And now that it is a county-owned park feature, it's also experiencing an influx of kids playing, but also parents driving their kids and parking along the side of the creek. And again, it's one thing to expect some type of regulation for like parking enforcement or something, not that, but to that end, the speed being the same as it is on the rest of the avenues is treacherous. We had a driver of a dually pickup slam from Highway 20 to Country Club a couple days ago, and CHP had her, thankfully, for the better part of an hour right here because it was right after school hours, and likely she was dipping off of Highway 20 to avoid the CHP. And thankfully, the CHP happened to be there in that instance to get her before she made it past here, because she would have most likely injured somebody. So that's something I've been waiting to see any action from the county on, particularly because it is their new park. It's something that has been here for hundreds of years, but now it is a county-owned park. So speed limit signs and or decreasing the speed limit of areas that are, I think, slower zones.
So there's a few things. I need to hire, or the DPW needs to hire a traffic engineering consultant. So I've been working on an RFQ for a long time. It's sitting on my desk to review. I need to get that published and hire a traffic engineer. We're going to adopt new policies on how we accomplish engineering and traffic surveys. And so we have to conduct an engineering and traffic survey in most instances whenever we post a new speed limit sign. They're required. We also have to do a traffic study if we install a new stop sign. So these are several $1,000s to have an engineer conduct these studies. So we need to develop a policy on how we're going to address those. And once we have our traffic engineer on board and our policy, we're going to move forward with the signage requests. I'm also going to request funding for federal funding to do some studies about systematic approaches to different instances around the county. So for example, where parcels come to a corner, we have 90-degree turns. So we should have a systematic way of approaching 90-degree turns, especially on our 55-mile-an-hour rural roads. So we need to slow them down all to the same speeds when they turn the corner. I know we have different speeds. We have a lot of inconsistent signage throughout the county as far as speed limits go. We can go from 40 to 25 to 55 in a short span. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to look at the speeds in our downtown business districts and around schools. So we are going to look into speed studies in the future. So I'm very happy. We had for the last year, essentially, we've had a staff of 3 people working on projects, and within this last 2 weeks, we've hired 2 people. 2 people came on board. So we've increased our staff almost 100%, and excited about the work we can get done. So I'm excited. We've got some things coming up this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for coming and listening to us and informing us about what's going on in our part of the county as well.
Yeah. So please reach out. You have my email address, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, reach out, and we'll try to respond.
All right. Thank you. That's fine. Austin. All right, item number 5, so just an update, and unfortunately, I was unable to attend one of the meetings due to a family emergency, so Austin Pratt will give the update regarding the District 3 MAC Alliance that we're working on.
Hi, everybody. So I have here an email of, might be letting this chopper go by, sorry, so I don't have to fight over it. If it doesn't take an hour.
They're gonna circle the
It's
building.
gonna really rattle the windows, I can tell, yeah. Coming over the ridge line this direction, I think. Anyways, let's see if I could speak over it, I suppose. I have an email I'm gonna read off. It is a compiled list of, was that me? Maybe. Huh. Sorry, my ADD is like lit by this. So at any rate, there is a compiled list. The SuperMAC is going to be working on these items via prioritizing system that will be out in a public survey in the next couple of weeks. I believe it's coming. So look for that. We will share it online. We will share it wherever we can. If you're on our email or call list, we will get it to you. And here goes that list of items. So for our code enforcement and negative image of the North Shore, we have universal trash collection, illegal dumping, abandoned vehicles and RVs, code enforcement issues, empty storefronts, dilapidated docks, dilapidated houses, outdoor storage on Highway 20/Blight, feral cats and abandoned animals, refresh community signage as that topic. Under public safety issues, we have a lack of law enforcement, illegal cannabis, drugs, as well as illegal off-road vehicle, legal usage, homelessness, vagrancy, squatters, vandalism, and crime. Under transportation and traffic, we have traffic issues along Highway 20, evacuation routes, speeding vehicles and big rigs, rerouting off Highway 20, traffic calming, local road quality, potholes not on Highway 20, safer crosswalks, pedestrian sidewalks, and bike lanes. Under social issues, we have protection of our vulnerable children, seniors, disabled, disadvantaged, establish regional resiliency centers, warming and cooling centers, communication, gathering places, information/community centers during emergencies. Under environmental issues, we have quality of lake, weed abatement, paper divisions, enact the paper subdivision plan, tree preservation, and sediment runoff and illegal grading. Under working with local government, we have a unified approach to shoreline and Upper Lake Lucerne area plans, understanding of how county departments work / getting max communities involved in the planning process in the early stages. And under local economy and business, we have redevelopment of tourist-based economy along the North Shore, development of a planning document that would allow max to obtain grant funding, increase signage, promoting Lake County pullouts on Highway 20, establish areas of Highway 20 as a scenic corridor, preservation of the view shed, regional events, more support for locally owned businesses, limit box stores, increase broadband, internet, cell phone services, short-term rental ordinance, less Airbnb. And there is an addendum to that list that I added, which are, I am interested in seeing VIP vet care services for the North Shore, specifically things that may be able to help for the feral cats issue or otherwise abandoned animals, rent control / senior mobile home parks and corporations, Lake Pillsbury and local economy, residential issues, and public safety emergency response, and possible additions to the geothermal setback to address scenic route or scenic issue. And that is something as a list, as a compilation, that the SuperMAC will be working on. And we, your members from C.R.T.H, Becky and I will be taking the things that you Lucerne members return that survey. There's a drop-down menu to answer its first question of where you're from, which community, and it's listed. So all of those survey responses we will get back from Lucerne members in the future, we will be using to prioritize at the SuperMAC. And with that, we don't have another meeting of the SuperMAC, I think, until a couple of weeks from now. So that's all the SuperMAC news.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Aceves, chairperson for the Worth Western Region Town Hall, Upper Lake and East. I'm part of the D3 meetings that we've been having, and I know it's a lot to take in the survey, but we really wanted to make sure that people, our public has input on exactly, and it's important for everyone to have input on this, not just the group that were on the meetings themselves. It's important that everybody can take the survey, put your comments, because you're the ones that are going to drive this District 3. I'd like to add one more thing to this, just to emphasize. We had a drive-by shooting on my street 3 days ago, and a person was shot dead, or not dead, he's alive, I guess, but could have been dead. And we had an overturned, I came into my street, Floyd, with an overturned car up on the north end with 5 or 7 or 8 car CHP. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we got a problem, and it's a big problem. My son, who's on the spectrum, was frightened about this. He was in the house and he heard the gunshots. So I don't know if our law enforcement, and this pertains to D3, law enforcement has moved up as a priority of making sure we should have a drug task force put back in. I don't know if we do. And this is getting out of hand in our areas of the crime and gunshots, at least 10 or 8. I think you heard 10 gunshots go off. I don't think they've caught the people that did this. I'm sure it's an open investigation, but man, it sure rattled my son and my next door neighbor as well, who's on the spectrum. And there's no need for this to happen. We need more enforcement of the drug task force in this county, especially on the North Shore, to start taking these people, finding them, and putting them behind bars and getting them out of our neighborhoods. It's getting ridiculous. People going back and forth. This was on Floyd Way in Nice. So it's just getting out of hand. So anyway, that's my comment on this, and let's add that'll be my priority now, besides, the safety of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Sorry to hear that. That was awful.
Anyone else have any questions or comments about the task or the D3 Alliance? We're just all getting together, and like I said, like Austin emphasized, the survey is coming out, and it'll be important for you to, give your input and what your priorities that you feel are for our community. So be looking out for that soon. All right, item number 6, update. Okay.
Unfortunately, we're only able to use chat because I can't get the feature enabled. We tried troubleshooting it before the meeting and just couldn't get it to work. They can hear us just fine. Holly Harris said, thank you. The Earth Council is very excited to work with C.R.T.H and Worth.
All right.
That's a
awesome.
statement to the announcement that he made
All
for
right.
the SuperMac meeting.
Thanks,
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. All right, Supervisor Crandall, you're on.
So I'll keep this on me, but I know I'll have to bring it around here in a second. I wanted to, I'm glad you mentioned that. The copter program, that's supposed to be in place. I don't know, I think that happened during the day, right?
It happened at,
From what I understand, it happened in the day, but still,
I'm not sure of the time period. I got home about 6 or after 6. I can't. And it was already completed, but it was the afternoon, I believe, when it occurred, or at least started.
It was around 6 p.m., 6:07 to be
Yeah,
exact.
so I was after that, so it was just, about 6:30 when I got home. So they had already blocked the street, and the car had been overturned, and the person that was in the car was already extricated, and I don't know, I don't know all the details either.
But still.
But still, it was frightening to our neighborhood, and I know copters in place, but
still, that's
still.
what I was just leading
Yeah.
up to, is that either way, at 6 p.m., I think that's when that patrolling is supposed to start either way. So it's something that I'll need to have a discussion with about, because copter is specifically in place for North Shore, for Lucerne, Nice, Upper Lake, this area, because of the high crime, like you've mentioned, how everyone's actually mentioned. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. From that, I wanted to highlight the capital improvement plan that Glenn was mentioning. I know I mentioned it before, but we've never had a collaborative capital improvement plan. It's usually just been Water Resources does theirs, and Public Works does theirs, Community Development does theirs, and then they get a new director and it starts over again. This capital improvement plan is more collaborative and more of a plan that's going to involve the whole county as a whole, rather than just being one department's plan. So that's yeah, and transparency. But and one of the things that Glenn mentioned was that when you mentioned that we've never had one before, we haven't necessarily a full county plan. So that's going to be pretty. That's an important aspect to remember. Another thing, OpenGov. There's been a lot of folks that have had issues with OpenGov. So currently there's work being done to conduct a presentation or some sort of tutorial because of the struggles that people are having with OpenGov. And if you don't know what OpenGov is, it's the new format that community development is using for complaints and for if you're going to apply complaints for code enforcement, or if you're going to apply for like a permit or anything of the like, you can go onto OpenGov, start an account. But a lot of folks are having issues with that. So look for that to be laid out. I think that's something that possibly Austin or one of you all can put on the C.R.T.H page. I know I'll put it on the supervisorial page as well. Quick update too, I think, I don't know if I mentioned last month, but AAA's funding is still good till the end of the year for the funding for the centers, you know, for food and what you've all applied for. So I know there was worry that wasn't going to be funded, but it's still in place. And speaking of that, there'll be a legislative update tomorrow on the agenda from Nielsen, Merximer, Paraneta, Gross, and Leone. It's a really big firm. But they are lobbyists for the state and the federal government, so they get a lot of information that to help us figure out what funding or is at risk or what type of legislation we need to be looking into and whatnot. Because of them, Supervisor Pyska was able to go out to DC a week and a half ago or so to discuss Lake County's struggle with fires and the effects on our home insurance. Commonly, county supervisors don't usually get to go in front of the Senate at this level or very often. So it was a really monumental type of thing, especially for Lake County. And apparently she was there with Elizabeth Warren and a couple of other senators. So it's important, you know, and hopefully it bears some fruit, but it also got Lake County's name on the map, I guess you could say. So just wanted to highlight that because a lot of times folks don't know what some of us do. I mean, Bruno is on like the C.S.A.C. leadership. Supervisor Pyska is on the NACO. You know, that's the National Association of Counties. C.S.A.C. is California State Association of Counties, and I'm on the Rural County Representatives. Well, I'm not on the leadership board no more, but I'm still on the EPA Federal Advisory Committee, which is still kind of been dormant since the new administration, but we should be doing something soon. So there's a lot of committees that we're on that Lake County hasn't, you know, been a part of before. So that's was able to get a couple things done because of it. So hopefully this helps with that insurance, right? Back to Lucerne Dump Day. If all of you were able to be a part of that, apparently the first day was 110 tons and the second day was 160 tons. A total of almost 500 tons. When you include since 2023, a total of almost 500 tons, because the first three that we did in 23-24 was a total of 60 tons, 20 each time roughly. And then I think it was 90 and 60, then 110 and 160. And so then in the end of the month on May 28th at the Moose Lodge, they'll be doing another. And this is community development in collaboration with CalRecycle, with the help of the community and all of the work. I know that Upper Lake Worth has the Pile Road group that is a subcommittee, and they had mapped out everything on Pile Road, and a lot of that information was key to applying for this grant. So look out for that. I know that there's not necessarily like a requirement that you live in Clear Lake Oaks. You just got to show an ID. So if you still have garbage, it's imperative that you get it there. That's a lot of I mean, when you think about it, all of that garbage out of Lucerne, Nice is just, I mean, just think if it was still here, you know, like a lot of people feel really good about it. One of the things too is there's not really anywhere for the folks that don't have a lot of resources to take the garbage. If they don't have garbage service as it is, they're doing their best or figuring out ways to get it to, especially seniors who don't have anyone to help them. They call on somebody to do it and it ends up in the hills sometimes. Sometimes it gets to the transfer station, which is in Lakeport. So there's the discussion that we talked about before, and I'm glad it's on your list for the SuperMac, which is the universal garbage. Now, that will definitely help with the community growth boundaries. I know they're looking at starting that possibly in Clear Lake Oaks, but a transfer station is something else that was brought up that we don't have on this side, which would be really helpful as well. Being in Lakeport, it's one of those things, folks ain't gonna have the opportunity to get there. Another thing to mention was Damian Marks, he's part of the group, community development, Shannon Walker-Smith, Damian Marks, Marcus Beltramo. They were mentioning how folks were not, when they were waiting in line because the trucks were getting full so fast, they were taking the garbage and dumping it to get back here to fill up more. Well, the problem is that folks were coming and they're like, here's a ticket. You can go take it to the site yourself if you need to. You can go to Lakeport. They're like, no, I'm going to wait, you know, because either A, they had 5 or 6 garbage bags in their car. They didn't want to drive all that way. Or B, their trailers were like on rims or, you know, things like that. I mean, that's the reality of what was going on here. I know that, so that's what we've been discussing that, like, you know, maybe it's time to start thinking about that here in this area. Lucerne would be ideal because it's the midway point. But that's where this group's going to come in handy to have that dialogue. So that's where that is. Let me see. Lake Pillsbury. So there's going to be on May 20. No, I'm sorry. When I mentioned the garbage dump day, it's going to be May 31st in Clear Lake Oaks. May 28th is going to be the Lake Pillsbury Town Hall from 5 to 7 at the Sopa Reese Theater. It's going to be put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and there'll be folks there, myself, Supervisor Sabatier, Lake Pillsbury Alliance, Farm Bureau. They'll be there to discuss the effects of the decommissioning of Scott Dam and the current situation of Lake Pillsbury.
That was May 23rd?
May 28th.
28th, thank you.
Yeah. So that'll probably be discussed tomorrow at the board meeting as well, because Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Amanda Martin will be there to give a presentation as well. So she's already hit the ground running by scheduling this, and this is going to be a good event. So if you can make it at the Sopa Reese Theater on that day, it'd be really helpful to go to this, get some information on that. Other highlights I'll bring.
We got 2 comments from Zoom,
go ahead.
if you would. Okay, Holly Harris says to shout out to CR.T.H and the Worth. The Earth has their work cut out for them to catch up to you guys on the cleanup. And then Holly Harris says, we support EJ's concept of a local transfer station.
There you go.
EJ, I had a quick question.
Yes.
So, and I don't know if I'm wrong here, but for the first few dump days that we did, if I get any closer to it, it's going to be down my throat. For the first few dump days that we did we, or was code enforcement present? Because I know some people got letters this time around that said, you know, you can bring this here and dump your stuff. I don't recall hearing anything about that. Do you think that happening, you know, this dump day is part of why we had so much trash brought in?
Are you referring to the dump days that we did prior to?
Prior to this one?
Yes.
I hadn't heard anybody mention a letter or show any when I went to those ones. But this time around, I did hear that people had gotten letters saying, you know, we've observed a violation on your property.
Yeah.
You can take this and dump it for free.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we worked collaboratively with CNS Waste, and that was with the whole the garbage provider of the county. And so they were only able to do a specific amount. They did great for us. I mean, we enjoyed it, but there was no letters because code enforcement didn't necessarily have to be here for that one. It was really us, Water Resources came, and then basically you all and whoever else decided to come and help with that. But those were, yeah, that's all those were, is those collaboration dump days for Clash Against Trash or whatever we called it. With the Cal Recycle grant, they were able to get ahead of it and find these homes. So I know like in Nice, they were letting this one property know on Crump, they were like, well, you have an abatement coming, but you can avoid it if you get this garbage. It's gonna be right down the road. You can get it there. There was another here behind the castle, one of the properties there that, I don't know how many truckloads, but they got quite a bit. So they reached out to them and gave them basically an amnesty, and that's part of what their spiel was to folks was, you know, if you can get this garbage to this dump day, this is basically your amnesty. You won't have to, you know, endure this whole abatement or this whole situation when it comes to that. So yeah, this was, according with this Cal Recycle grant, they were able to do so. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because they are basically doing that to ensure people have like a chance. And now I don't know why, but I guess it's their prerogative, it's their department, but for me, I'm like, go and find them now, go give them, you know, whoever has a violation, go do it now. But they want to basically do this amnesty and then move forward from there. That's what they were saying when they were out talking to folks while we were doing the dump days. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's one of the things that they were highlighting and people need to know, you know, that, well.
Is that grant going to cover any more future dates?
So far, it's going to cover the Clear Lake Oaks, so the May 31st and June 7th.
And is that the extent of the grant?
From what I understand, it's supposed to cover around the whole lake.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's just moving
Yeah.
around the lake.
Right. So yeah, that's what the whole grant was for, is they identified not only on the North Shore, but in other areas where the dumping spots were, so, yeah. Let's see.
We have another comment from Zoom. Holly Harris says that code enforcement said they passed out 500 letters to people with issues, meaning they passed out the handouts to 500 people after driving through towns.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I hope that answers part of it. Yeah. Master fee schedule, just some updates for tomorrow's agenda. Master fee schedule was pushed back from last week. It'll be on the agenda tomorrow. So if you have some concerns about the master fee schedule, tune in or let me know through email what you would like to see, or even tell me here so I can ask the questions tomorrow or address it. Military Appreciation Month, they do it every year. Ginny Craven will be there. Let's see, I already told you about the legislative update in the Chamber of Commerce. And then there's a consideration of TOT relief of penalty, and I don't know what I wrote there. There's a new system that the treasurer tax collector had procured, and it's called Rentalscape. And apparently as you know, we've been having issues with short-term rentals for quite some time. People aren't reporting their rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, or whatever the case may be. And so they're looking to start collecting that TOT. Those tax dollars are just kind of not being collected because of this, because we don't know who has it or who doesn't. So Patrick is going to bring this to the agenda tomorrow for further direction. He's already sent out 172 enforcement letters to folks who are not either paying or who they've identified that's on this list. So they're able to actually go throughout each website or each app or whatever the case may be that shows who's renting out these VRBOs or Airbnbs. And so that's the goal there. On the other side, us as the board are looking to do a short-term rental ordinance as well to complement that. So we'll be looking for that as well. Let's see, I think that's, yeah. No, the other thing I just took a note of. So I think that's what I've covered so far. That's all I have on my list right here.
All right.
Thomas.
Comment on the Pillsbury project, and EJ probably knows about this. If you're not subscribed to California Insider on YouTube, you should. It's a great channel covering all California topics, and it's wonderfully done. And they just talked about this recently. Chris, who's running for Congress?
Yeah, he ran against Jared Huffman, and so he's probably looking to do so again.
He explains in detail, and a shout out to Supervisor Crandall as well during that interview for half an hour, about exactly what his feelings and opinions are about this, which are in line with Supervisor Crandall and our majority of our people. So check that interview out, California Insider. You'll find it on there with Chris.
Chris Coulomb. Yeah.
And it's a great, again, it's a great site for everything else. The incredible interviews about all things California, and it's fascinating with all the issues going on, and it's very educational. But anyway, that was a great interview too.
And another from Zoom, we got Holly Harris. She wants me to ask you to let people know about the PG&E issue that you're collecting names for. You mentioned it at the Earth last week.
That's right.
And you had a list of roughly around 20 people already.
And I have PG&E written on here, and I don't know why I didn't address that. But so I went to a PG&E meeting that we have monthly in Sacramento with RCRC. They bring Mr. Acosta there, and basically each of the counties kind of, hammer away at them for what they're dealing with. One of the main focuses of that was the trees, all of those trees that are cut down, the PSPS situation. That's where we would address a lot of those concerns that we have. And so when we were finished, my contribution to it was basically letting them know not only that we're still having those problems with trees being cut down and not picked up properly, or their contractors aren't local, so they're not necessarily considering our concerns when it comes to the agreements that PG&E already made. PG&E had vowed to ensure that everything was cleaned up properly and that they wouldn't affect the people that live in their homes. They would make sure to tend to that, and the contractors aren't. The other thing that I mentioned, and I'm sure that you probably have a lot of folks here that I'll probably have to get a list for me too, but just in general, I was letting them know that with the AMT, the payment plan that they have, a lot of seniors, a lot of people that are struggling right now, they're getting their power turned off. They have these agreements that they make. If you make a specific a payment amount for the next year, on-time payments, then they basically forgive your whole bill. So like, let's say you have a $3,000 bill. Well, if you pay this $150 a month for 12 months, they'll forgive the rest of it. Well, there was an example. There was a veteran, disabled veteran, who was on that plan and was doing great, but PG&E had said, well, you missed a payment, and they were disputing that, turned the power off of the veteran, and then found out later, oh, wait, you did pay it, but like a month or two went without power, right? And so this has happened to other folks as well. And so there's people that have oxygen machines and, anything else that you need as if you're on a disability and whatnot. So he asked for some names. I sent him some names, and if you have more, I will send them as well, because people are getting their power turned off for sometimes no reason. So I just, that was what Holly was mentioning. Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know whether you know anything about it or the answer, but I think everybody's aware, because they've heard it, all of the saw work up in the forest areas, and all the piles that have been created. The Forest Service is not, and they've had their contractors, obviously, are the ones doing the work, whoever got the bid.
Mm-hmm.
But there's thousands of piles up there that never got burned. And I went up there because I had to help a friend with their water system that they have on a spring that's ancient. Anyway, so going back up through there and seeing all these piles, and then in addition, and I have photos of it, but there's black plastic that is intermingled in the piles. And then in the stream bed, there's plastic from those piles that had blown off of it or whatnot. And, you know, if they were going to burn them anyways, and you have this black plastic, well, that's illegal and obviously a environmental concern. And same thing with having this black plastic in our waterways. So I'm sure it's made, some of that black plastic has made it down from, you know, over by Dunstan and up that way, Leslie.
In the waterways.
But if that was supposed to be, you know, some sort of fire mitigation or something, those piles are bone dry. And what was the purpose of doing them? Because you'll just have a crown fire of piles if we have a wind event and, you know, something catches on fire. I mean, they're not very, they're spaced apart, but, you know, they create an immense amount of heat. And there's been no action with those piles. And it's been that way for, you know, they started what, maybe like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And they're still sitting there.
And that's the same piles they're having over in other districts in the Lake County as well. And then even in the meetings that we're having,
But I mean,
this
this is federal land, and so I don't know, you know, we don't have any control over it, but it certainly would affect us if we had a fire that either came up over the hill or, you know, started down here and then moved up.
Okay.
So I can share the pictures with you. But
Yes, let's share them with me, and then I'll figure.
because I mean, it
Forestry
didn't really
or
do
national
anything.
forest,
You know,
yeah.
they cut down a whole bunch of brush and that, but the piles still remain.
They're
And they
remaining
should've-
there to be burnt, basically, and it's not going to help us if it gets burnt.
No,
Yeah.
not during fire season anyways.
No, give me those pictures, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Yeah. I also just thought about this while we were talking, because Earth is already working on their budget. And if you recall last year, there's a budget that I set aside with discretionary funds, basically splitting the three, and it's at $10,000, but it's split between all three of you, $3,333, and I guess you guys will get the 34 cents. The others will get the 33 cents. But either way, there's that, plus the PG&E that's been sitting there basically since 20. I think when COVID happened, it just kind of like, you know, so it's like 4,166. Upper Lake still has their budget. You have yours, and I know Earth is using theirs as well. So start considering. I know that you mentioned in the Super Mac that talking about different grants to maybe go after or something like that. That was something you mentioned in your report, right? Yeah. So this can be like seed money for that. I know Cobb Area Council had done things like that as well. And so I know there's been discussions, and I think we talked about this before, of when they used to have the Alpine Festival and things like that. It could be something you guys plan for, or whatever the case may be. And I know initial stages of C.R.T.H, a lot of the help for the dump days came through. You know, you were one of the sponsors. So, but just giving you that insight, there's a document, and I'll have to get it to you. I'll have to send it to you. But you basically use it for, you know, for your meetings, for like any type of festival or something like that, or any type of mailings, those type of things, postage, materials for the meetings, things like that. So, and all it is like, so for example, what I think Earth is doing right now is they put together a flyer through Pack and Mail, and there's an account that the county has, and then we work it to where they send the invoice straight to the county covers it. We used it for the the dump days that we had here, the Clash Against Trash. So when we use this sewer, the special districts addresses, and then that's how we got all those mailed out. But giving you an example of some of the things you can do, so if you want to start putting something on the agenda you can look forwards towards, or if you want to build you know, something like that. I know that actually, didn't you guys use it? You guys used some already because you used it for the
for the Civ Assist.
That's right.
Yeah, we use it for that, and now we actually have, you know, a website with all of our agendas and minutes on it. Which is
Right.
nice.
So you did use it, that's right, you used some of it for that, and that really has come in handy because your minutes and your agendas are posted and things like that, so yeah, you still have, minus that amount, you still have that going, so, yeah, I wanted to remind you of that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Supervisor Crandall?
We got a shout out from Zoom from Angela, who actually asked a couple of those questions, and I mistakenly said it was Holly Harris, but it was Angela. So shout out to Angela. Thank you for joining us on Zoom.
All right, thank you. All right, item number 7, public comment. The citizen has up to 3 minutes to provide input on any item not appearing on the agenda. These items can often be further discussed on a future agenda if the C.R.T.H Council agrees to add it for a future item. Anybody have any public comments? Online?
Hi, I'm Julia Carrera, and for those of you that don't know, I'm running for 3rd District Supervisor in the June 2026 gubernatorial race. June 2nd, 2026. So on June 2nd, 2025, we're having a campaign kickoff here in Lucerne at the Lucerne Bistro. That's a Monday from 3 to 6. You are all personally invited. Supervisor Crandall, I hope you'll join us. We are going to have food, beverages, music, vendors, raffle, a cookie decorating booth, and a general presentation from myself and some of the people that have been attending the Coffees with the Candidate. We're working on a community-generated Lake County strategic plan with some resiliency plans in there. And I think our first couple resiliency plans will be presented there. So I hope to see all of you there. It's a community event, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Item number 8, announcements. Anybody have any announcements to make? Anything pertaining to the community, events, or anything like that? All right, well, hearing none, then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for your participation. And don't forget to look out for that survey.